All right, so good evening, everybody. I'm going to watch the waiting room just a few more minutes and catch any of the people just joining us. But I'd like to welcome you back again to our Virginia Pumpkin Growers Association annual meetings as we do them virtually and over the course of a couple of evenings throughout the next couple of weeks. Tonight, we're going to be talking about pumpkin disease control, and Dr. Steve Rideout is going to be doing that presentation. So thank you, Dr. Rideout, for joining us. I do want to point out, you all should be muted, but the chat box is available if you have any burning questions as he goes through his presentation and you want to type those in the chat box. Feel free to do that. And then I'm sure at the end, he would also be happy if we could, you can unmute and ask your questions verbally, whatever works for you. So with that, I'm going to let him start his presentation, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Ashley. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate being here. I wish we could be in person, but it is what it is. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Steve Rideout. I'm a plant pathologist, vegetable plant pathologist with Virginia Tech. Spent 15 years on the Eastern Shore AREC, where I was a vegetable pathologist and director for 9 years, actually, before coming to Blacksburg. And I am just, thrilled to be here. I'm, looking forward to working with all pumpkin growers and any other vegetable crops you may have. It was always a challenge serving you from so far. I used to tell people I was geographically challenged. So really good to be here and help everybody out. So with that, I'm going to start a presentation here and go through a couple of things. So a few things before we get going. My colleague David Langston in Suffolk, we do quite a bit of work together and share a lot of data as well. So I appreciate his contributions to understanding of pumpkin diseases and control. VDACs for grants, Virginia Ag Council for grants, agents, like Ashley, we've got terrific agents that work on pumpkins and help. My graduate students and industry support, those that have supported the research we do. And also thank you to the Virginia Pumpkin Growers Association. You provided me with some support letters and stuff for grants, and I really appreciate that. So, pumpkins, probably one of my favorite crops. One of the reasons why I'm really excited to be in Blacksburg is, I've always really enjoyed pumpkins. They're just really difficult to grow on the Eastern Shore. And so I'm really excited to work more with them. And, demand was terrific this year. People wanted, pumpkins to feel good about, and they're beautiful and all that. But if you grow pumpkins, they just look for an excuse to die, really. So they really are, from a disease standpoint, a challenge. And there are just a number of things that can pop up. Viruses. This is Phytophthora. This is my favorite. I got this a few years ago, and wow, it had some alternaria, fusarium, all kinds of stuff. This is Scrotium ralphii, or southern blight, powdery mildew. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this, there's endless disease in pumpkins. If I don't necessarily hit on one that you're interested in, don't hesitate to give me a text, a ring, an email, or talk to your agent. Either way, they'll get in touch with me, whichever way you prefer. But and Dan can tell you this: I've done day day-and-a-half long programs on just pumpkin diseases before, and so there's a lot out there. What I want to talk about first is a major problem that we had in the Commonwealth in 2020, and that was pumpkin viruses. And there are about 3 or 4 major ones that we get here. It's really hard to ID them. And to be honest with you, it's kind of academic because I don't have a great recommendation for you. You can't go out and spray a viricide and take care of it. So in general, you just say, okay, you've got a virus. And people have asked, well, I've never had this problem before. What happened in 2020? And a lot of these viruses are basically aphid, cucumber beetle transmitted. And we really had high populations early of these both. Probably due a lot because we had a really, really mild winter last year. And, we had more insects that overwintered. Within that population, there was probably more virus that overwintered. And it just seemed like right out the get-go, we had high populations of insect, we had virus transmission, and you can kind of tell it in the field. You'll see okay growth, everything looks fine, and then all of a sudden, bang, you get leaves that are crinkled and have this mosaic pattern. Then you start looking at fruit. You start getting fruit that are misshapen. Sometimes it just aborts the fruit. You get fruit that doesn't mature. Some fruit with really intricate patterns on it. Sometimes you can even get a premium for them if they're really pretty. But it's not something that you want, in your crop. So, as a pathologist, there are a couple of just little tips that I can tell you. And one of those is seed treatments. So your standard cucurbit seed treatment is Thiram. Of course, if you buy organic, it's not going to be treated. But Thiram is your standard fungicide treatment. Thiram's been around for 50, 60 years. It's a contact only. And it quite frankly does something, but very minimal. Your premium cucurbit treatment that you see mostly is far more, and that's FI 400 in cucurbits, and that's composed of 3 fungicides and 1 insecticide. So it gives you a broad range, some really good systemic materials too, against fungi. And you have thimethoxam in there as well, which is cruiser. Far more costs, pennies on the dollar when you look at your total seed bill. And I've always said this is really a sound investment. So if you can find it, and work it, I highly recommend far more, particularly when, we've had a couple of years where we've seen an uptick in viruses. To be honest, and I say this as we have one of our coldest nights of the year, but we really, really haven't had a bad winter yet. We haven't had that, good solid ground freeze for a week that we really need to reduce our pathogens and have a big impact on our insect populations. So, I think it's a sound investment. When your pumpkins start coming up, scout for insects. A couple of incidents last year where we had a lot of viruses that happened with early insect populations. And I think those infections happened really early on. There are some varieties that have resistance, and that's mostly to zucchini yellow mosaic virus. But none that I can say, hey, plant this and you won't have any viruses. So that's kind of what I have on the virus front. The next disease that I want to talk about is another one that we are trending in the wrong direction with in Virginia. We're seeming to have more problems with it. 2020 was no different. And that's Flectosporium blight. You may have heard this called microdochium as well. It's the same disease, but Plectosporium is kind of what some people will call it. Survives in the soil and on plant debris. Typically, it's a symptom of poor rotation. Not all the time. We've seen it in fields that have never had pumpkins in it. It's favored by warm, wet weather. Well, we've certainly had that. There are no resistant varieties, but there are some differences, and we'll talk more about that later. We see it on pumpkin. The other cucurbit that can get banged up with it is actually squash. So I want to show you some of the symptoms of this. The leaf, you'll see these really small pinpoint circular tan spot lesions. And you'll see that on the leaves. And if you look down on the stem, you start seeing these little small dots. So this is Plectosporium. Sometimes it can get confused with powdery mildew, which it looks like we've got a mixture of powdery over here with Plectosporium. But anyway, that's kind of what it looks like on the stems. And this is what it looks like on the fruit. This is when it really gets damaging. You can see it kind of moves with water a lot of times. So you see it in these streaks on the plant. Here it is on the handle as well, because remember we saw the stem or those the stems that had some stuff on it. Here's an up close version of it. Just again, little circular raised spots. Sometimes they'll join together and look like little rods or something. And you see some green scattered in here. That's because a lot of times these pumpkins don't fully mature, and it's nothing more than just the connection to the plant is really poor. It'll get in here and it'll really do a mess on these handles. And of course, that's really killing your marketability. So what to do about it? We are currently working really hard on trying to understand this disease a little bit better. Learn every year on it. Crop rotation every 2 to 3 years. Mulches, tillage. I put question mark there because, to be honest, I've seen it in conventional till, I've seen it in no-till. So it's really not clear what impact that may have. Fungicides, what we do know and what data has shown is that if you use fungicides and you use them preventatively before you have a problem, about the time you're starting to set, you go to flowering and start setting fruit. Chlorothalonil or Bravo, the strobilurins, anything with their strobilurin in them. If you have a couple of sprays of these, Plectosporium doesn't get real crazy. But again, it's pretty much everywhere. I've seen it pretty much in every field I went in this year. And it's just, we'll really have to keep an eye on it, and we're trying to learn more. Like I said, varieties, there are probably some differences, and we talked about this Tuesday night, and I showed this data. And this was at Dan and Chuck's place. When that was harvested, I went and rated the Plectosporium percentages, or the percent of pumpkins with damage. And you can see there are some differences, something like, Curie or Hermes down 40, 35, 10, 25. And then there's some that had a lot more Plectosporium that were showing up. So again, there are some varietal differences. I'll, keep fighting the battle here, trying to figure out which ones are better than others. This year, Ashley is one of the agents that we're working with. We're going to be putting in some variety trials, and hopefully we can get some really good Plectosporium data because we're going to do about 5 or 6 of them across the state. So, okay, so those were 2 diseases that were 2020 issues. The next disease I want to talk about really wasn't that big of a problem in 2020, but it's one that we really have to monitor and watch for because at any given time, um, downy mildew can really take you out. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about it because it's a little bit of a strange. It's not just downy mildew, and if you have it on cucumbers, you have it on pumpkins, you have it on cantaloupes. It's a little more complex than that. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about it. There are 5 different strains or isolates, pathotypes. There's a new term that some of the molecular pathologists are using called claves. But I'll try to just kind of summarize that for you. There are 5 different pathotypes. This is the old system. All of them go to cucumber, cantaloupe. But then as you start going down and looking at some of the other watermelon, and these are melons as well. Cucurbita, this is where you're going to be pumpkins and stuff like that. You can tell there are not as many pathotypes that go to pumpkin. So if you have pathotype 1 and it's infecting your cucumber, it doesn't matter because it's not going to be able to infect your pumpkin. So that's important. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to differentiate what's going on. One of the things that we do as pathologists, and we'll have this sentinel plot will be here in Blacksburg this year, but we plant different cucurbits and we just plant them. We don't spray them. All we do is go out and we look for downy mildew. Once we see downy mildew, we destroy it because we don't want the extra population floating around. But this is an average of the 14 years I was on the Eastern Shore, the average first date of detection. So we had 2 different types of cucumber, one straight 8, one's a poinsett. This is pickling. And then, so on average over those 14 years, and it happened every year, downy mildew showed up August 5th, August 8th. Butternut squash, we first detected on average August 8th. On cantaloupe and acorn squash, the average first detection date was August 13th. But look down here where you see pumpkin and watermelon. We're not detecting that until on average September 8th and September 15th. So I just wanted to show this to let you see, just because you have cucumber downy mildew or downy mildew in your cucumbers doesn't necessarily mean, it's going to get on your pumpkins. Is it concerning? Heck yeah. But it's not an automatic thing that, oh, it's in the cucumbers, it's going to get in the pumpkins. And there were 2 years in pumpkin that we never saw downy mildew develop out of the 14. And with watermelon, there were 4. So again, it's just, I just wanted to show that there's some differences in some of these strains that are out there. The symptoms, the upper surface, you get yellow leaf spots. These are angular or not. It kind of looks different in cantaloupe versus cucumber versus pumpkin. The one thing that it really shares is the bottom side of the leaf. And if you go out there when there's a lot of moisture, you'll have this kind of gray, blue, fuzzy fungal growth on the bottom. If any of you ever grew tobacco, this is kind of looks like blue mold of tobacco. It's the same sort of pathogen, but you'll see this fuzzy growth on the bottom if you have like a foggy morning or you had a rain the night before. So as the lesions get bigger, of course, you start having defoliation and problems. Just showing what it could do. This is cucumber, but downy mildew damage on cucumber. Here's a non-treated cucumber. Here's sprayed cucumber. So you can see the impact that it will have, and it'll do the same thing on pumpkin. Typically, what happens with downy mildew is it'll come in, and you won't see it for a little bit, then you'll see it, and it'll kind of hang around, and then all of a sudden it just takes off. And generally, there's a rain event or something like that that'll trigger it, and then disease will go crazy. And this is defoliation that we're looking at. And it'll start defoliating and wipe you out. What I wanted to talk about is how important it is to spray up front before it really gets bad. We can manage cucumber downy mildew. We've actually got some pretty good fungicides out there, particularly for pumpkin. But we want to spray them up front here. We want to spray them before we're here, where our rate of increase in disease is really quick. I mean, we're really having a problem here. So we like that preventative versus curative. I kind of equate this, and you know, after the holidays, I need to get on a treadmill. But I kind of equate it to getting on a treadmill at 1 mile an hour versus a treadmill at 8 miles an hour. A lot easier to start at 1 miles an hour versus 8. So it's really important to do that. I want to share some data, and this is from 2013. There haven't been a lot of changes in how the fungicides are controlling downy mildew. I wanted to make a point by showing cucumber data here. We hear so much about cucumber and downy mildew, and with good reason. It is the scourge of cucumbers. Cucumbers just really don't handle downy mildew very well. And remember, we were talking about those pathotypes. Some of the cucumber-only pathotypes tend to have more resistance problem with fungicide. So this was 2013. You can see our non-treated control. We got 75% defoliation disease. Revis didn't work. Remogold Bravo, Presidio, some of these other materials not working very well. Arondis, which was new at the time, worked pretty good. So we put the same treatments out on pumpkin, and the results were pretty different. First of all, we see that downy mildew is not quite doing the damage in pumpkin that it would, say, in like a cucumber. So you're like 45, 50%, you know, damage here. And remember, Revis didn't work good in cucumber, but it sure did in pumpkin, as well as Presidio, and Arondis, Randman, Prevacure. So a number of materials that were actually doing some work. And we'll summarize all these later. And then this is one of the organic downy mildew trials that we did back in 2009. We've done several of these. And real quickly, this is Serenade, Sonata. This is Oxidate, Champ, which is a copper, Microthiol, which is sulfur. This is Actinovate, and this is Sporan. And basically what we see is microthiol, sulfur, actually offering a little bit of control, copper as well, and Actinovate. One of the reasons why I wanted to put this in here too is this material right here in the green bar. This is Oxidate. And to be honest with you, I know that Oxidate gets some promotion throughout the Commonwealth, and I really don't recommend it. I don't recommend using Oxidate for really on any crop in an infield situation. Oxidate does, it's kind of like a sterilant. It's a flash kill. It kills what's there. It has no residual activity whatsoever, but it just doesn't have any sort of residual activity. It's pretty expensive for what it does. And I've done 20, 30 trials on Oxidate, and I've never seen it ever really do anything for in-field disease. Now, with that being said, it's great for sanitizing in a packing shed or something like that. But infield use, I don't recommend it. So a little bit wrapping up downy mildew. There's some host tolerance, but that's not really prevalent in pumpkin. Selective planting and cucumbers, you can do that, but pumpkin, let's face it, we all have a target date, and it puts us right in the downy mildew window. Anything you can do to improve drainage is always a good thing with pumpkins. Scout for it. Whenever cucurbit downy mildew gets going in Virginia or in North Carolina, or other areas, we've actually seen it come in from New Jersey before. We will actually start alerting our agents, and then the agents will send out alerts, or I'll send it all out to the agents and they can pass those along to you. One other place that you can utilize to monitor movement of cucumber downy mildew is the IPM pipe website. So I'm gonna stop this for a second and flip over to the website here. Everybody see that okay? I see a few heads nodding. So either you can see it, or Dan, I'm putting you to sleep over there, one of the two. So, anyhow, this is a very useful website. You can go to and see where downy mildew is. Of course, right now, we're out of the season, but you can go in when the season's going on. You can click to receive alerts, click on the form. You can go and learn more about the disease, or what you can do. I think there's some historical forecasts in the season maps. So this would be where it was in 2019. And you can go in and kind of see where it was at, and kind of look at, just a bunch of different stuff. But during the season, you'd be able to go in, see where it was. You can highlight these various reports and you can see what crop it's on, which, as we talked about prior, is very useful. So again, that's a site that would definitely be worth utilizing. All right, so we're going to go back to the talk here. Hopefully that switched okay. Downy mildew fungicides, and we put this in order of efficacy. Feel like Arondis is probably your best bet, then Ranman, Presidio, Prevacure. One thing about Prevacure, we talked about how important it was to be preventative. Prevacure is one that does a whole lot better if you utilize it preventively versus as a curative. Revis, Zampro, the protectants, they're good to have in there for resistance management, but they also broaden out your fungicide a little bit more. These are pretty specific materials. So when you put something like chlorothalonil with it, it'll broaden it out some. And with organic, I like sulfur and copper as your backbone. Okay, so we're going to switch off of downy. We're going to go to fusarium fruit rot, and this was something we saw at the end of the year last year. We saw it locally here. Also encountered it up in Orange County, some even up around Winchester. Never had really seen as much of it as I saw before, but this is fusarium fruit rot, and it's a splash and wind dispersed. It survives in soil. Fusarium's everywhere, quite frankly. And so it makes my life more difficult as a pathologist, just because I always get fusarium. It seems like you never know whether it's the primary pathogen or secondary a lot of times. But this fusarium actually has enough energy to be a primary pathogen. I just saw more of it last year. I kind of attribute it to, just the wet weather we had. And the other thing that, and I guess Tom speaks next week, he'll talk about, again, some of the insect pressure, pickleworm and stuff like that we had may have caused some more problems. Anyway, it's worse when you have wet weather during harvest, where they're touching the soil. Usually that's where you see, a problem. Rotation will help. And just, it's just something that we saw a lot of. I had some questions. One thing I don't know is whether Prolon has any activity against it. Prolon is one of the few fungicides actually that has activity on Fusarium. I just haven't seen the data, but it could work. I also wanted to remind people of storage. Important to get the longest life out of your pumpkins that you can. So just want to remind storage 50 to 55 degrees. This was very important this last year because, demand was so great. Relative humidity 50 to 75%. Of course, avoid the rainfall and the elements such as sunshine. Avoid injuring during harvest. I get a lot of questions about dipping fruits in water. I don't really like the thought of that because when you put anything, it's kind of like tomatoes in a dump tank even, you're actually putting pressure and that water can be forced into the pumpkin, and that's not a good thing. Or you can have small holes. It's just a bad idea to dip your fruit into water. You can use a dry or damp washcloth to remove soil debris if you feel like you need to or want to. I've heard questions about pressure washers. I don't like that idea either, because again, you're pressuring, you're putting pressure on that fruit, and it's just not good. Actually, I did experiment using some of Dan's pumpkins this year, trying to wipe them down with a 10% Clorox versus water in a rag. And I didn't see any differences in how those fruits went over time. So I'm not sure, that you need to use a washcloth with Clorox. I don't think that really does a lot for you. So, but we'll keep looking at it. Again, there are kind of two production guides. We're special here in Virginia in that we have two guides. Both of these you can download through Virginia Tech. They're readily available. They're free, both of them free downloads. It'll cost print by demand. The Southeastern Guide, we do actually have some hard physical copies of that. But I just wanted to mention these two guides because I get a lot of questions about them. Which one is better? Which one do you feel best about? And they're different. So they're just different in the way that they're laid out. I attend both meetings. I work on both. I tend to like the Mid-Atlantic Guide a little bit better just because it's more specific for our area. And it doesn't have, it just fits our area a little bit better. We do that in cooperation with Rutgers, Penn State, Maryland, Delaware, and West Virginia. The Southeastern Guide ranges all the way from Florida to Texas. So it can be a little bit different. Regardless, the information's pretty similar. If you ever have any questions, let me know. But there are differences in the way that some of the information is laid out. If you're a homeowner or you need suggestions for people that don't have pesticide license or want to go to Home Depot, there's the Home Ground and Animal Pest Management Guide. And this is the appropriate book for homeowners, gardeners, etc. Finally, I want to close with our pumpkin disease spray program. And this is something that David Langston and I worked on back in 2016. We've updated it pretty much every year. But this is what we call the Cadillac program. You know, because we had pumpkin growers that said, you know, I want a spray program where you can put it out and almost guarantee we wouldn't have a disease problem. Which, you know, that's hard to do with pumpkins, but this is one that we kind of feel like, you know, really did a good job at covering your bases. One, we talked about it earlier, the need for seed treatments and using certified seed. I think they're more, you know, it's more important now than ever to use these premium seed treatments. And this program kind of has protectants, which chlorothalonil sulfur, mancozeb. We didn't even talk about powdery mildew tonight, just because the resistance in these varieties are really good. So if you're using one of these highly resistant varieties of powdery mildew, you know, maybe you don't need as much here. Downy mildew, Phytophthora, downy mildew, you get alerts. Phytophthora is a weather-driven deal mostly. And then you have Plexisporium anthracnose, which we see from time to time as well. So again, this is kind of the materials we believe in for, you know, that work on these various diseases. Is it a little bit more than most people will probably want to do? Sure. But you can go off of this kind of base and, you know, if you are interested in what you think we like for a certain disease, you know, it's listed on here. So again, thanks everybody for your time tonight. I'll reiterate again, I'm very excited to be out in this part of the state, and look forward to working with you, visiting a lot of your farms and answering any questions you might have. Email's there, never hesitate to give me a call, shoot me a text, email, any of that. So again, thanks for your time. Be glad to try to answer any questions you might have.
So you all should have an unmute button on your screen if you want to do that. If you'd rather type in your questions, the chat box is there for you to do that as well.
This is Dan Brand.
Hey, Dan.
I guess I learned the term the pathotype. Never paid much attention to it. And pumpkin was just susceptible to 5, I think. Well, is there a good indicator species I could plant just for pathotype 5, downy mildew?
Well, so basically, yeah, I'm unfortunately, you know, you're just as you learn pathotype, I'm throwing you a curveball and going to start talking about claves, right? But anyway, the one of the benefits, I guess, me being here is we'll have sentinel plot in Blacksburg, so I can monitor that for you, and like I said, we'll know when it's here. So, but you know, your pumpkins will be your indicator. So, but we'll have all these different cucurbits here in Blacksburg this year. So,
thanks, Steve.
Oh, no problem.
We had somebody ask for your email. Do you care if I post it in the chat? Will that probably be the easiest?
Yeah, no, I'll do that, Ashley. So you don't
Okay.
have to worry about it. I was getting ready to do so. And I'll go ahead and put my cell phone in there as well. So, okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
Am I still unmuted?
Yep,
Yeah.
you're still unmuted, Dan.
Hey, I really got to be careful then. I personally have had trouble spending the extra money for Arondas. But I was looking at one of your last things. It showed you had some activity on Pythium too, and maybe the only one.
It's well, no, actually, Arondis doesn't have Pythium activity.
Oh,
It's
okay.
one of the few OMI that it doesn't cover. I actually remember when DuPont had that material testing it specifically on Pythium, and we all were kind of surprised it didn't. But it will work on Phytophthora. So if you have a Phytophthora problem, it's really good on Phytophthora. Randman is it actually probably of that list, probably has the best Pythium activity.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
And I'll reiterate again, I'm recording this, so I'll put it on my YouTube and share that link again so that if you missed anything or want to go back and look at something again, it'll be there for you.
Let's see, I have a question.
You got one in the chat.
Yep. So thanks, Nathan. Yeah, actually, Inspire Super is one that. So what we're doing, and David Langston and I both are looking at this. We're collecting Plectosporium isolates and basically screening it against different fungicides to see what really works. Because we put out trials over the last few years, and we kind of, we for whatever reason we weren't able to differentiate the fungicides very good and say, this one worked, this one didn't work. Inspire Super is one that we kind of feel, it's not. That it should work because what we've seen from our trial results indicated that it's probably doing something. But I would tell you if it's working on your farm, where you have Inspire Super, and we know Cabrio is going to have some activity, then I would say roll with it. But yeah, Inspire Super should have some activity on that. And certainly Cabrio does.
Chemical recommendations, I guess that would depend on where you're at. So if you wanted to shoot me an email, or I guess you could also email Steve, we'll get you in touch with some folks on that.
Yeah, we'll be sure to.
Yeah, and I'll put my email.
Okay. So Greensboro, Raleigh, not off the top of my head. I don't know. I think what you could look for would be a Nutrien dealer or a Helena dealer. If that would probably be where I would, go. They're gonna, and not saying that you can't get stuff from Meharan or some of the other southern states, places like that. But those are some of the bigger ones that you might check out to see if they're nearby.
And Bethany, I see, just was on here, so she just commented there, and so that's not really far from Greensboro, so they would be.
Yeah, not knowing what's in Greensboro exactly, but I'm sure you can find somebody to take care of you. Okay. All right. Never hesitate to ask me anything if you need any help or have any concerns. Again, like I always say, pumpkins are looking for an excuse to die. So I'm here, glad to help. If I didn't cover something that you're interested in or didn't think of, any of those things, just let me know. So.
Thank you, Dr. Rideout. Really appreciate your time tonight. And I do want to remind everybody, we're skipping next Tuesday because there were some conflicting meetings going on. So next Thursday, the 4th, is our next meeting. And we're going to be joined by Farm Bureau to talk about liability and that sort of thing. So it should be a really good presentation, something we've wanted to have in the association for a while. So feel free to join us for that one, and I'll be sending reminders out. So thank you all for your time tonight, and appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, take care, everybody.